Your love, I'm gonna make you mine. There's something special about your love. I think it's one of a kind.
We're on the Blue Couch. This is where we're going to spend some time discussing topics that we wouldn't normally discuss, but we're gonna sit down and kind of record them. Yeah, so like Dan and I, we communicate pretty well.
Yeah.
And we
turn towards you.
You're gonna turn towards me. And we communicate pretty well, and we discussed, which is what kind of intrigued me about him. Yeah, it's one of the things that kind of intrigued me about him was that we were able to discuss everything from current events to religion to how we grew up and all that stuff. Hopefully, eventually, you'll be seeing us doing more of these sit-down topics.
Especially if you guys react the right way to it.
Yeah, and the plan is eventually, like tonight, I'm going to pose a question and we're going to discuss it. I'm sure maybe in the past we've discussed it before, but it's not like a rehearsed thing. It's just kind of us talking about it. But yeah, but eventually, hopefully, you guys will be commenting below in the series and kind of asking us questions that we're gonna kind of like deep dive into. So, question of the, I don't know if it's gonna be an hour-long conversation, but it is the question of the night is, how has marriage changed you? Specifically say marriage and not being a parent, because that's another topic altogether. So like, how has our marriage, because we were together for 4 years before we got married. About 4 years before we got married. I'm not good at that, guys, and he's even worse. But I think it's like 4 years before we got married, and then we've been together for, this year will be 5 years. Wow. 5 years since we've been married. Oh, good job.
What do you mean?
We've been married since 2017. So we've been married for 5 years this year.
Okay.
Right. That's cool. Yeah, so if you want to break it down in that, like, okay, and why, okay, so let me even go into like why I'm asking, because like people, I wonder, like, or people talk about it, like I think there's been this continuous like degrading of like the importance of marriage and like why marriage is important and like why what's the point of getting married. You can just be in a long-term relationship and have a bag of kids and then, you know, it's okay. And it is okay. If it works for you, do what you do. But did you see a dynamic change?
I don't necessarily agree with that. Like, I feel like people are scared to say this. Like,
scared to say what?
That's not okay. It's not okay. Like, there's a lot of people that are. I think you're genuine in the fact that you're saying like,
some people don't need to be married.
Yeah, but there's way less people than I think what is being normalized out in society. And what I think...
I know anybody that I'm like, yeah, they shouldn't be married. Yeah. Yeah.
Of course, I'm sure you could find somebody that you know for a fact, like, yeah, bro, you're not you, or yeah, sis, you are not intended to be married, or not at this time. But, like, it's just over... I think made way too normal.
So why has it become normal? Is it because the staggering numbers of divorce in not even the United States, in the world?
I was saying the other night, like, as
question. I have a question about that. I'm sure I could research this, but you know how they're like, I don't know if the statistics have changed, but it was like 50% of marriages ended in divorce now, right? And I'm like, are more people getting married than like in the 1950s and 40s?
No, but
okay. I just wanted to know if like they're like, yeah,
but
well,
like
actually a lie.
As I said, and I'm sure somebody can point out the numbers. I haven't researched it, but as I said to you the other night when we were having a discussion with our friends, I was like, listen. My issue with this like, oh, this generation and this, it's eroding and all of this is, like, all of those things have always been there, or they have been there for much longer than we're giving credit to. The issue is now the acceptability of not putting on a facade for an outside audience, or it has become more difficult to put on a facade because things are more intrusive and those things. Now society accepts divorce more than it did back then. So you might, our parents' generation and our grandparents' generation,
can we talk about Caribbean?
They might not have gotten divorced, but they were having extramarital extramarital affairs, doing extramarital. They're having cheating. They're having, in some cases, extramarital families.
Whole families.
And then hiding all of this. And then because
we're married.
We're married.
We're still married. We got married in the church and we still married.
Or so, the whole mission to get to have all the kids out of the house before the. So it's like, okay, but you know, but you know that the family or the relationship was null and voided already.
So the degradation of the actual was already happening, has happened, right? But
do I think that's happening at a higher rate? No. And then probably not. But I do think there are factors.
So I think the topic. So this is the whole point. This is not this is not. You know how we wanted to do the video podcast? This is kind of just we just open here and talking. So even though I pose a question, we're not answering the question, but this is how we speak, right? Maybe eventually we'll get back to that point, but. So, I've encountered a couple of divorced women that I went to high school with, that I went to college with, and they're my age, and they're divorced. And I'm nosy. I know I'm nosy, but it's not a nosiness. Yeah. So it's I know I'm nosy, but it's not a nosiness. It's more of how can I take what happens in your relationship and improve this relationship? And this is the whole point of this forum, is that we can talk about that, right? How can we affect your life, right?
There's always gonna be hopefully I can draw from someone else's but experiences.
But okay, so, and like I said, it wasn't me being nosy. It was just kind of reaching out. One of the individuals was somebody that was high school sweetheart, right? High school sweetheart. They were high school sweethearts. And I saw the relationship start, and I would look on Facebook and see them, and they'd post pictures, and I'm oh, they look so happy, and it really made me joyful to see that relationship.
I know bad people
on social media, right? So that brought me joy to see, them making it how many 20 whatever plus years, right? And they're divorced, and I asked her is it true? Did you just post that as a joke, or are you guys really divorced? And she said yeah. And I was we didn't really get into what happened. It was kind of one of those don't need to say that much. But she said she felt she lost herself. And then another close associate of mine, we had a conversation, the same thing about her divorce, and it was that she lost herself, right? So what happens in marriage is that you feel you lose yourself. So that's why I asked you, how has marriage changed you? That, tying it back to that question, how has marriage changed you? And is it changing you for the better? Is it changing for the worse? How do you lose yourself in marriage? All that stuff. Because that's kind of the umbrella question. How has marriage changed you? And then how do you regain yourself back? Because, it's... You don't want to lose you, because that's who you fell in love with, right?
With yourself?
You. I don't want to lose me, right? Because that's technically who you fell in love with, right? You're going to change. You're going to grow. The person I was, even when we met, is not necessarily the person I am today.
But there's a difference between that and losing yourself. Yes.
What, losing, and the fact these are two people, two different backgrounds, two different career paths, They met me in two different dynamics of education, right? And it was like the fact that they both said it, it made me like just wonder, like, and I was doing some thinking, amongst, me and myself. And then I was like, I remember talking to him about it, and he was like, you just really don't know. So like that's kind of what I want to talk about, is that like, how do you feel like you've changed, good or bad? Like,
It's all right. So there's a couple things, like, you got to break it down, cause like
break
there's
it
a
down.
bunch
That's what
of stuff-
we're here for. Break it down.
There's a bunch of stuff that is happening all at once that makes it seem,
In a marriage, or in what I was
that's
just
the
saying?
whole thing that makes it like seem a lot more complicated than it is, because it's like, okay, what can I draw from that? And then the reality of that in some cases is that, some people are going to be able to teach you something. Some people will be able to teach somebody else something, but they're not going to be able to reach you with anything, because you're just not going to draw the message or be receptive to the message from that, or there is no message for you particularly from that person. Like, you're not like, okay, well, I know people that have been in relationships that were super long, but like from the jump I could tell you, like, okay, there was something wrong with that relationship. It was founded on a bad foundation or something, or they always had something that was like a critical problem that was always being ignored, and they just progressed through the steps. You could progress all the way through all the steps of gradual life, like, okay, it's time to get married, or it's time to have kids, or it's time to have kids and then get married, or do all of that.
All right. So he's really not answering the question, but I'm gonna answer to an extent. I'm gonna answer it in regards to like me and like I think what women kind of go through, right? So like if somebody was to sit down and ask you like, like tell me about yourself, right? Women are gonna be like, oh, and a lot of times this is kind of what they will say, right? I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a sister, I'm a blah 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 blah, right? The dynamic of like wearing those multiple hats is more apparent, I think, for the woman than the man, right? The man is like, oh, he will describe.
I don't agree
You don't
with
agree
that at all.
that? You don't agree with that? Okay. So I feel.
But continue.
But for women, I feel like that's what can happen. They get lost in like,
So
I
then
am being.
What if that's true? Then how do men lose themselves then?
I don't know, but that's why I haven't encountered the man part of it. So that's what, like, we're not getting divorced.
But this
or
is not
anything like
a.
that.
It's not.
But I'm telling you, like, what I
But
kind
you're
of.
not in denial of the fact that happened, so it can't be
But
possible that you.
No. So you're not in denial of it. You know I am a wife. You know I am a mother. You know.
No, that you're not in denial of the fact that men lose themselves in various things.
But so tell me, like, that's what I want to know. Like, so that's why I'm sad. Okay, for like me, I don't think I ever. I don't think I'm losing myself. But like early on in our relationship, I understood the dynamic of us, right? And I really liked him, and I knew that this was not going to be a relationship that was just like a fleeting relationship that was just like we dating. I was like, nah, this guy, he could be the one, right? If he's not the one, I'd be like really surprised. So I understood the dynamic of us, right? And it was important for me to, what's the term, like, invest like time and energy into this relationship, right? And I feel like a lot of like young women will do this, like, oh, I met this guy, but like I gotta go out with the girls, I gotta do like spa day, and it's like, okay, well, are you making time for the relationship? Are you making time to sit down and talk and like get to know each other, right? And not just the whole like, oh yeah, we go to dinner, we sit down and like it's cool, like I like him and I know his favorite color. Like really talk about like like how we talk, right?
Okay.
We established that early on. So that was important to me, and to the outside, it may have looked as though I was not going out as often. I was like all up in his face, right? I was into him. And when we started doing like the marriage counseling, we only did like a couple sessions of marriage counseling. We realized that it's not anybody being
it's
upset.
also who is accusing you of this, like, because you have to look at the fact that it's always going to be that people got a problem with how much time you are investing in somewhere else when you don't have time for them.
Yeah, investing in
so
that.
It's like, I could have not gone out for 6 months straight and no one is going to notice that, but the second I don't have time to hang out with them, and it's because they can see, it's like, oh, nah, I'm doing something with my girl. Damn, bro, you always with your girl. Like, and it's like, bro, when I was like single for a year, we weren't doing nothing. Everybody was, I don't have no money or this or work Monday, and it's like, I'm like, bro, it's Saturday. What are you talking about? Or whatever you got going on. So like, that's what I'm saying. You're saying I'm not answering the question with certain things, but I'm saying there's several different little factors that add up to a lot of stuff. First of all, if you hear the statistic, like about half of marriages are not gonna work. I mean,
so all right,
about half.
One, like this is actually something, like, I'll say her name. So like Kim, right? Kim was like, make sure you talk about every and anything with your person before you get married. And I was in a relationship at that time, and I remember thinking that and like trying to have like conversations with the person, and he just wasn't receptive. He just was just like things that I would ask about like religion, and I would just be like, well, this is not going to go very well when we have children, or like if we have children and all that type of stuff. And it was like, I saw that and knew that. And in my mind, I had to convince myself, like, oh, should I just stay in this relationship and like continue these like we talk about the warning signs, the red flags. Like, those are red flags that you're like, maybe you should have been getting married, And I feel like those red flags are things that people will ignore, get married, and then either they are hiding their feelings about it, and it okay, so like, let me try to give an example. So like, I don't want, like, okay, I'm a Sabbath keeper, so I go to church on Saturday, right? Well, I don't want, when we have kids, I don't want them to go to church on Saturday. I want them to go to church on Sunday. And like, I don't know about that, but okay, fine, right? We're going to go to church on Sunday, even though I want to go to church on Saturday. And then we have kids, and it's like you've told yourself, like, well, I really want to be with this person. So he said he didn't want us to go to church on Saturday. We're going to church on Sunday. And you end up losing yourself.
I think that buys into what you're saying, and is the whole losing yourself, right?
And these are assumptions. I don't know if this is really kind of what happens, but I'm assuming.
No, but it happens somewhere. It might not happen in those two specific cases that you're talking about, or with everybody, but 9 times out of 10, there was a meme that I just read actually today that said, don't be scared to start from scratch, because you're not starting from scratch. You're starting with the experience, right? And I was like, yo, like, meme culture is like, it's always trying to be funny, or it's usually something that you're like, but like, that one was interesting because I feel like that's what the problem is. A lot of people are scared to start from scratch. So they'll say like, oh, yo, there's been imminent signs of like that something's wrong. but I've been with this guy for 4 years. I don't want to go back and date and do all of this. But the reality is, you're not starting from scratch unless you're just gonna unless you're going into like Black Mirror and you're gonna erase the experience of being with that person, or you're going to, or more realistically, you're going to be ridiculous and just ignore all of what you've learned from being in that relationship. Oh, you know what? Like, I didn't realize, like, oh yeah, I might have found him attractive, but he smokes, and I thought, okay, I could ignore that, but it really bothered me a lot. Yeah. So going on next time, even if I think you are 14 out of 10, like, if you smoke, that's like, yo, no, that's dead to me. That can't
that
was
a deal breaker for me,
right? And that's what I'm talking about. Like, people will do this this thing that is a problem. So
can we talk about that? Because like that wasn't a deal breaker for you, but it was a deal breaker for me. And
that was a deal breaker for me. I've ignored it in the past.
You dated someone. Okay, so like me, I met this guy and he was like, oh, he was so nice, and I was like, oh, but I found out that he smoked, like, literally the first night we met, and I was like, no. And he was like, oh no, I don't smoke that much. Yes, I went to his house after a job interview, so this was like during the day. I went to his house. He lived on Miami Beach, and he was living there with like a bunch of guys. Young and dumb. I went to his house, yes. But he was a really nice guy, but it was just like, he was like, oh yeah, I don't really smoke, I smoke like socially or whatever. But in his room he had this balcony that like looked onto, I think it was like Alton Road or something like that. And he said, like, he had a whole bunch of like cigarettes like in a bowl, and I was like, oh, I thought you like smoked like socially or whatever, and like, because like, you could tell it's like his room, so I'm like, you sit on the balcony and you smoke. And it was like the fact that he felt the need to like lie to me about it. That's like, that's your thing.
But I think that's a bigger problem than smoking.
That was a red flag, and it was, I knew that from early on, and I was like, but like I said, he was a nice guy. He was a firefighter. I'm sure he ended up with a great woman or a great guy or whatever. But
that's not a given, actually. But
well, yeah, but someone. I hope he found someone that was okay with
say that.
smoking.
Like,
yeah,
you hope that he found somebody.
But you had a situation very similar too. I don't want to talk on behalf of you. But,
I'm not sure which one you're talking about.
Dad had an ex that smoked. She stopped smoking to be with him, I guess. And then after they broke up...
Well, she didn't stop smoking to be with me, but she tried to stop smoking during the relationship. But apparently the whole time she looked at it like she was stopping smoking for me. And what was weird about it was, like, I think she wanted to stop smoking, but whenever it would get hard, she'd get frustrated with it and look at it like, I don't even want to stop smoking.
Okay.
So it was like that thing where it's like, if you do something when you're not, even if
like,
you do the right thing at the wrong time, it's still become the wrong thing because your motivation is ill. So it's like you gonna get hit with the temptation and be like, I don't even want to do this or whatever, and then when we broke up, she started smoking again and was like, almost kind of like, we were going through this weird like one up phase, I guess, or just, it wasn't a phase because it was like a quick interaction, and it was like, like, I started smoking again as if it was like going to bond me or something, and it was like I was like, okay, how's that working out for you? And it was like, it occurred to her like, yeah, like, how is this hurting him to tell him? Like, I was gonna be like, oh no, you start, like, I was like, it wasn't because I didn't care about you, but it was like, you're making it sound like I told you, like, I need you to stop wearing like short dresses or something that was good. That's for me being insecure about it, or like, I don't want that because it's something you're doing for me.
All right,
you're not doing that for me.
So that was a good example. So, is somebody, or this was something, I don't know, this is something we like saw in a movie or something, but a guy will meet a woman, right? Wearing short, short dress, tight up, whatever, boobs out, butt out, whatever. Yet, when it is now like this is his woman, he wants her to like dress conservatively, right? So those are the things. Again, this is assumption. This is what I am assuming happens. This is when I go through my mind of like, what do you think happens when someone says that they're losing themselves, man or woman? Is it that like, I used to like go partying out, like that doesn't really know me like clubbing Lisa or whatever. I stopped clubbing technically like a while before we met. Like I stopped kind of going out like that. I think we both had like our party stages in our lives and we kind of grew out of it. And like I still don't mind a good session or whatever, but like going out, like I used to go out every weekend and he was doing the same thing. We were probably at the same parties, but we grew out of that. But if you met me like, oh, I go clubbing Friday, Saturday, and I take a break Sunday to go back to work.
But I think the problem with what you're saying is this, right? Mm-hmm. You're all right with that particular thing as a example. There comes a time when you should naturally like get beyond that, I think. Not to say there's something wrong with somebody who keeps partying, but I'm just saying like if I met you,
but if that's you
doing
though.
Yeah, but anything that I met you doing 20 years ago, if you're the exact same person that you were 20 years ago, I can't hang out with you. Like, you're telling me nothing has evolved, nothing has changed about that. Like, you could still enjoy going out. I'm not saying that, like 20 years ago, I was how old? I was watching football. Do I still watch football? Yeah. But what I'm saying is just like there's got to be an evolution of the situation, not like revolutionize and change who you are. The problem with the let's go back to the clothes thing to stay on that topic specifically, that example, right? You met a girl dressing a certain way, then when you start dating her, you want her to change how she dressed, right? Now the problem that I see with that is, for me personally, I'm the same person that says, yo, I don't want to be with somebody who's a man trap, who does all this stuff to get a man's attention, and then as soon as they get a man, they stop doing all those things. So that's exactly what you're asking her to do. You're literally asking her, hey, do all this stuff to get my attention. Once you get my attention, now you have a man, stop doing all of those things. Or stop doing those things like publicly or whatever. And yes, there is like, yo, that's like inappropriate or blah, blah, blah. But bro, that should be inappropriate when she was single too. Yeah. It shouldn't have been appropriate for you to be attracted to her to want to be in a relationship with her. You could find her attractive like sexually or whatever and whatever, but you wanted to date this person, but now you have a problem with the way she dressed. That's weird. That's just weird that you'd want to change that aspect of somebody. And that says more about you than it says about them.
Like, I feel like we're grabbing at like still, or we're, like we're assuming or grabbing at like superficial reasons or whatever. What I would love to, like, trust me.
I think you are divorcee and you
lost it, like, you felt like you've lost yourself, comment below and kind of tell us like what do you think happened?
I think we already mentioned it, or
I think, to be honest, what I really think it happens is people change, and I feel like people are not prepared for that in marriage, right? So like we both changed, I believe, right? And the speed of our changing may not be the same, right?
Yeah, I think people change, but I also think they are
the plan is that they will still change and still end up in the same path, right? Because our wants and our needs are going to change.
Yeah.
Will our wants and needs always
Plus, where have you been while that person was changing?
Yeah.
Were you
ignoring it?
Were you too busy, like, ignoring the situation?
So that's what I feel
the
like,
problem is. Like,
where I feel in marriage kind of
you lost yourself is like, well, the fact that you couldn't express that you didn't like giving up something, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Like, you can't tell me that the time that you invested prior is more important than living a lie, that can't be more important to you. You can't say, yo, you know what? I don't want to, like you said about, I really feel strongly like I keep the Sabbath. I want to go to church on us, but I've been with this guy for 5 years, so I don't want to lose the 5 years that I invested. So I'm gonna give up this aspect of something that I believe. That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous
because that can't be worth. Yeah, but people do all kinds of stuff. Just, all you gotta do is just not wake up one day and notice and just be noticing the changes of your partner. Through the course of our relationship, when you first met me, I wasn't eating beef. You didn't just one day just see me get up and just eat beef, right? And I think there would be.
I was like, you wanna? I think you asked to taste something or something like that, and I was like.
No, but we had discussions before. I think I'm gonna go back to eating beef or whatever.
Yes.
So it wasn't like.
All right. So
yo, what the hell? What are you doing?
Stick up in. What did you just say?
What?
What did you say? What did you just say a while ago? We had discussions.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. You can't.
Like, if you realize how, unless you're communicating it, sometimes there's some things that the others, your partner might be going through, that unless they communicate it with you, you might not realize. Because I'm trying to think about so if you want to go into adult topic, trigger warning, adult topic. If your spouse is like, oh, I don't want to go there, but I want to try something different sexually, right? And he's not able to communicate that to you, or you're afraid to communicate it, whatever it is. You're like, oh, I can't communicate that with her because she's too prude, she's gonna be too uptight. And you're like, well, I'd rather experiment with somebody else.
You shouldn't have been with that person in the first place.
But I'm saying, growth-wise, you might not realize, oh, I met this woman and whatever, and
But how did you know that she was too prude to you? Because you knew her.
Because you knew her.
you grew to meet her, and you realized throughout some other base of conversation. Oh yeah, I can't talk to her about that.
Yeah.
So you can't say you didn't know that. That's what I'm talking about.
No, I'm saying you knew, you know that I'm a prude, right? So you are like, well, I'm not going to come to her.
So why did you continue to date someone?
No, we're married now. No, I'm talking about we're married
But
now.
how did you get married? Did you trip and then the next day you were married?
You were prude too. Let's say we were both prude. We were both prude. And I started watching this porn.
How were you? That's what I'm saying.
I want to try it now.
Saying.
You've grown.
You're fast forwarding past something that has to happen, right? Which is if I know, for example, that I know, for example, I'm into country music, right? I love country music. I meet you, I go on a couple of dates, I realize you're wow, I hate country music, that's the worst music on the planet, whatever. And I realize country music is important to me, but I realize as I'm growing to learn to meet you, you're not into country music at all. I can't listen to country music around you at all, right? You chose, as you learned that thing, to continue the relationship without addressing that at all. Or am I going to be listen, I know you don't like country, let me expose you to some country, see if I can kind of, it doesn't have to be your favorite genre, but you can't hate something that is that important to me and for us to continue as a relationship. So but how did you know that your person was a prude enough that you couldn't bring that to them? Because you learned that person, but yet you decided, I'm going to still continue for whatever reason. Maybe it's what you aspire to be. Maybe you're like, yo, you know what? But I am not as Christian as this person, or I'm not as whatever as this person.
What if you started, because a lot of these marriages, not a lot.
Watch, there's
some of these marriages start off, we both on the same page, right? And then...
And how do you get off the same page without each other knowing?
a lot of things can happen. Oh,
No,
at work.
You're making it into
No, you have different.
You're
friend
making
dynamics.
it into a mystical thing, and
you
it's
have
not.
different friend dynamics.
Absolutely
I
not.
go out with my boys. My boys are talking about they get pegged and they like it. Edit out.
Yo,
Whatever.
You are making it into a mystical thing that, like, tomorrow you can wake up and not know who I am, and the reality is that is bull crap.
You know what? Because I understand the importance of growth and.
Listen, I am not blaming the person. I'm saying we're all susceptible to being blind or turning a blind eye to it. You're all susceptible to being so busy that you're not paying attention. So I'm not saying, oh, it's your fault. That's not, but people always want to hear that it's never their fault.
Okay.
And that they have no fault in a situation.
So, all right, I'm going to pose another question. Is it your responsibility as a partner to be looking for your changes, or is it your responsibility to express your changes to your partner?
Yes.
Yes, what? It is my responsibility?
No, to both things. You gotta if you're purposely trying to hide something from somebody, that's on you. Yes, you're bad. And if they're also not being receptive to obvious signs of change, that's also their bad. Mm-hmm. So it's both things. It's not either. It's not or. It's not my job to report to you all of what's changing inside me. Just like it's not your job to be susceptible, like just be perceptive to every single change. Like, oh, he only wear black undershirts. How come he start wearing white undershirts all of a sudden? Like, what's up with that? Blah blah blah.
Because in those simple shows you watch or whatever, my husband is wearing a different perfume or cologne now. Like, I wonder what's going on. I'm like, it could be something. But if that's the thing that you notice,
you didn't notice any other thing at all. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. You can't make it into this mystical thing where.
So I don't want to be too medical. I don't want to be too medical, but the heart blocks, right? They come home. They come later and later and later. He's coming home, and eventually he doesn't come home. Like, you weren't noticing that he was coming home later and later.
Stop that.
What heart block is that?
Don't you
can't get enough of it. Yes, I just made a heart block joke. Comment below on what heart block I just was talking about. But yes,
what I'm saying is, you do not wake up. I hear this too often from people. It's like they woke up and they were a different person. That is bull crap.
So another thing that I've encountered in just like women talk or whatever is that just one day he came and was just like, and I'm using as a woman, I'm using the man, like
that's a Tyler Perry movie.
He just woke up and it was like, I can't do this anymore or whatever. So it's like, you didn't see the red flags before. You didn't see
and it's not all your fault. I'm not blaming the woman in that case.
So have you ever watched Waiting to Exhale? You ever watched Waiting to Exhale?
No, probably not all together.
So I believe there were warning signs too. But it was that she never expected it kind of thing. But I'm sure there's warning signs.
Challenge anybody to prove me wrong. Anybody that says, I say this with, and I don't like speaking in absolution. So there's always, I guess, some weird exception to something where somebody had some kind of mental break and no. Anybody who says that they just woke up the next day and they were a totally different person, it's a reality check for you. Mm-hmm. They weren't the only person that was sleeping. You just woke up and noticed a lot of things that they've been changing over time. So
name 3 things that have changed since we've been married? We're going to go back to that original question. Name 3 things that you think have changed within me.
I already named one of them. Like
is?
I started consuming beef. Like you're talking about like a personality thing?
Yeah, and me. All right, so I'll go with you then. So, I think since you've been married, your focus has changed, right? I think your life focus has changed. You become more more goal oriented.
Since marriage?
Since marriage. Because I feel like, in marriage, you understood understood the us.
So here's the problem with what you're saying for me. Mm-hmm. The way, and you're gonna say no, but I'm saying, if you're saying like, I'm more focused, it sounds like a semantical thing. No, but what I'm saying is the gradual steps.
Yeah.
No, it's not about it being offended by what you're saying. But what I'm saying is, what you're saying, if you're gonna make it into this mystical change that just like, oh, I woke up and he was a different person, is then what you're saying then is when we were dating, right? Like prior to marriage, like even during the engagement, because we're not married, like I was this wild boy, just I'll go wow, I do all kind. Then I got married. I woke up the next day, I was like, holy shit, I gotta get my shit together, and like got super focused, laser. Come on, like that's ridiculous.
No.
You didn't go from like yo, Fat Joe Schmo on the couch to like the next day you woke up after the ring went on your finger and you were Kobe Bryant on. Like you had to work for that. You had to get to like you was in the gym, you was working out, and you went and you kept going and gradually worked to there. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so this is the reality, right? This is the reality of what I'm seeing, and I kind of wanted to. I didn't like trick you, but this is what I want to say to like people that are on the outside looking in at like marriages, right? There's no secret sauce, right? I'm not gonna be like there's no difference, right? Because we've discussed this more than once. That like there is a difference in like in the commitment of marriage, right? But your relationship doesn't change. Like you don't, like you said, you don't slide on the ring and it's like, oh, we're like different. That doesn't happen. So like this is why I wanted to like sit down and discuss it. Like I said, I had my plan in my head on like how we were gonna end up, hopefully discussing this. But I wanted this to happen to show that really there's no answer to that question. Okay, we had a good 4 years of like, we lived together prior to getting married, and that's not something that I would suggest to everybody.
For everybody,
okay,
but
it worked for us, right? It allowed us to have that like one-on-one, we wake up in front of each other, we see things that some people only see when they're married, and that, like I said, for us it worked. With some of my exes, I don't know if that would have worked, but it worked for us, right? So that is what I wanted this discussion to lead into, that there was no difference between dating, engagement, marriage. But what changed?
There is, but it's a gradual.
It's not
metamorphosis into the next step.
But when the question I asked was, how have you changed since marriage, right? And I wanted you to and I think that's why it was like for me to come up with that question, to see how the wheels are going to turn in your head. It's like, how have you changed, right? We have changed together in as a relationship, right? But the dynamic of marriage, which is what kind of is, because I'm like, get married, have babies, have the same last name, or merge a last name, whatever, right? But there's really no difference, right? Like I think so many people are scared of marriage, and I'll agree. Like I wasn't, my parents' marriage had its good and it had its bad, right? And I knew the elements of the good or the great that I wanted to implement in our family, but I also knew the bad that I didn't want to bring into this family. So those are the red flags that I looked out, within in him, that I was like, okay, no, I'm not bringing that into, my future and the generations after, right? So I understood that, and I understood that marriage is something that's sacred, right? But jumping the broom or whatever from the past, just present relationship into the future marriage, it's really, I think people put so much heaviness onto marriage, right? And marriage, like, what did they tell us in marriage counseling? Don't go in there with expectations, right?
Okay. But that's I think what
they
I'm
said
talking about.
Still
this
have
magic.
like, what are your they wanted to know what are your expectations, right? But don't go in there like, oh, marriage is this, and this, and this, and this, because if it falls short of that, then you're like, well,
that's
damn.
True. But it can be this, and this, and this. But the reality is, it can't be this, and this if beforehand it hasn't been practiced to be that. You don't wake up. You don't wake up and play around, and then the next day go win a championship. You guys have practiced. You have played hard. You have done what you had to do. You've worked on the drills. You've done all the things prior to getting to the dance. It still takes some luck. It still takes all of those things. Okay. And a final is more is more like heavy than a playoff game or the beginning of a tournament or the knockout tournament or whatever the sports analogy you want to use, because I'm thinking more football, but whatever it is, in any sport, right? But the reality is, just like you said, we live together. That, like, I couldn't behave like our relationship was not serious and get to the next step of engagement and get to the next step of marriage. You have to, you're not pretending to be married, but you have to have the same focus and seriousness that is going to make that next step successful.
I used to go to poetry nights, and they used to do this thing, like, rewind, and, like, they would go back. So I want to, like, I want Dan to literally, not literally say the whole thing again, but I want him to, like, reword that, because he's really good at that. That, I think, is one of the failing points in marriages, is you put so much effort into, like, courting someone, right? And then now in the marriage, it's like, oh, but we married now, right? And
that's a trap.
You just said that, but that's what you were saying without saying, right? So that's why I want you to, like, talk about the championship. Yo, you trained to get this to the championship. You win the championship. Yeah. You don't play again for another season. But defending your championship is harder than winning it. Defend the championship. Okay.
So, like, if you do this nonsense of like the happily ever after, and you think that's where the story ends for you, then that's what's also gonna lose you, is because you're gonna go like, okay, my finish line, where my effort stops. Like, I'm gonna run as hard as I can at the beginning of the race, right? But once I cross the finish line, I'm not going to put in the same effort as I did on, like, 20 yards back, because the race is over now, right? Do I have to? But the reality is, like,
that's where people, I think, fall short.
That's one place they fall short. But the other thing, the other place that they fall short is, like, bad prep with weird expectations. Like, you can't sit back, like, okay, I'll use nursing school. You can't say, okay, there's 12 days to that test, right? And then for 11 days straight, you don't study hard, but then you're gonna go on the test and be like, yeah, but I deserve to pass though. Like, how? What did you do that made you think beforehand that you were prepped and ready to pass this test? Okay. You didn't put in the work. So if you just like, okay, you know what though, like, I'm gonna cheat, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, but when I get married, I'm gonna be serious though. Oh, that shit is not gonna work.
Say it again, okay?
That ain't gonna work, bro. Yes. Like, that's
yes,
I tell you honestly,
that's a fact.
That's
right
not
there.
gonna work. And if you
That
have the
is a
expectation that like, okay,
fact.
I'll get my ish together when that happens, that's not gonna happen like that. Nothing works like that.
Trust me. So that is
nothing works like that.
How many relationships have you been in, right? You know the man is. These are red flags. These are the red flags that people are not paying attention to, right? And they're like, oh, well, he cheats. Well, you know, when we get married, it's gonna change.
He gonna stop. You know, he's not.
Why would he?
Whatever he's
and
doing,
the thing is he's
practicing for what the next step.
There's unfortunately okay, because I'm speaking as a woman because I know these stories, but it could be the other way around. But I'm gonna continue speaking as a woman, right? So a woman will be like, oh, well, he's gonna change. He told me he's gonna change, and the man will be like, oh, I'm gonna change. Why do you think you're gonna change?
That's two of y'all fooling each other. That's both. That's you lying to yourself, and then he's reinforcing that lie to yourself,
Why?
or vice versa.
Why?
This is like, okay,
why?
Well, she don't trust me, and she goes through my phone and stuff. But maybe when we get married, she'll calm down because she'll know that we're more serious. No, bro. No. You don't need to go to that next step.
To the next level.
That's what I'm saying. Like. Yeah. You don't go to that next step if you don't. You know what I mean?
So even that.
What did I complain about in nursing school? Do you understand? No. All right, we're gonna move to the next step. No, that don't make any sense. I don't understand the first step. So guess what's gonna happen when you ask me to now do all 12 steps in chronological order? Bro, I was telling you I didn't understand. I didn't get past the first step, and we on like step 12 now. You're like, and this is how you finish. No, bro. This cake is gonna come out horrible because I'm still back here. I haven't mastered the first thing. That's what I'm saying.
But that's true. So
unrealistic expectations come from
like men will be like, oh, she crazy, but like when we get married, she's gonna calm down. Why do you think she's gonna calm down? Why do you think her personality is going to change after marriage?
Or why do you think it's gonna calm down to an acceptable level? It might calm down. But it might not calm down to what you like. You know what I mean? Like what we had that big argument the other day.
Discussion the other day.
And I said,
I
said, listen. I said this. And you looked at me. I was like, yeah. I was like, yo, all women are crazy, right? All women are crazy. And you're like, all men are crazy. And you know what? Both people are right. But you gotta find your brand. I could look at my boy. He's the closest person in the world to me, right? And I could look at him and be like, yo, meet his girl and be like, oh yeah, your girl look good. Cool. Physically, she's attractive and whatever, right? Then she do something that in his head, he's like, man, I hate when she do this, but it's not that bad. Me, I could be looking at him like bro, what is the hell is that? I would never put up with that. And what you gonna do is give each other flack like, bro, you soft because you put no, it's not.
It works
That's
for
his
him.
brand. If that really works for him, where he's like, okay, it's annoying, but it's something I can really overlook. Mm-hmm. It's really not that big of a deal to me, right? Yeah. That's his Starbucks and that's your Dunkin' Donuts, and both of y'all are right with your brand. That's your brand. That's what works for you. It's not what makes Coca-Cola better than Pepsi or Pepsi better than Coca-Cola. It's what you tolerate and what you like best. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm talking about. That's so true. It's not it. And if you cannot think you're going to sip on grape juice and then go, yeah, but you know what though? On December 12th though, it's going to become wine. It's not. It doesn't work like that. Mm. It's never going to become that. And you're setting yourself up for failure if you think that like all I'm going to do is like, well, you know, I'm just I'm going to invest more time into it and just do something more serious, right? There are all these signs that the relationship part is not working out. I had a boy that did that. Had a relationship look like it was on the rocks, and his solution was to get engaged, and lo and behold, he's divorced now, and it's like when he adds into the divorce numbers and stuff.
But again, because I know this relationship that he's speaking of, she knew the red flags and she ignored the red flags.
Both of them did though. It's not like she was the only person that got married.
I'm not blaming the person, but like He had more red flags.
Yo, you getting into a blame game. She
That's
got married
upsetting.
to him though, so
That is true.
okay, so
True that. Remember you say true that? True that. Yeah, I told you I'm sorry. Bringing back like old words like dope. That's dope.
what?
I bet you would catch on. Dope. That's dope.
You just said that with the least amount of enthusiasm ever.
That's dope. But yeah,
So that's what I'm saying. It's one, don't ignore things thinking that time is just gonna like that whole like time heals all
wounds, yeah.
wounds or whatever.
Yeah.
That's not what it means. It doesn't mean it might heal all wounds, but it's not going to. Time is not going to stop something that's actively hurting you, though. Mm-hmm. You know, if it might heal the wound itself, but if you're standing in front of a lawnmower that's spinning, you're going to get a new wound. So it doesn't matter if time is going to heal the old wound. You're going to have another wound.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. Like, you can't ignore red flags. Don't be scared to say, you know what, this is not working out.
This is not for
because
me.
It's gonna happen at some point then,
and yes.
and it'll probably happen at a worse.
And don't you want? Wouldn't you rather it end prior to?
I'd rather have only put lost 2 years in a bad relationship than try to find a way to make it last 10 years and then it still ends up falling apart.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, damn, now I lost 10 years. Yeah. Instead of just the 2 that I was so scared to lose. Yo, time that's already invested is gone.
It's gone, yeah.
The only thing you can reap from that is the experience.
Don't continue along. So yeah, so we kind of covered more than one topic tonight, but the first topic that we really discussed was how has marriage changed you? And the consensus is marriage doesn't really change you. Marriage doesn't change you from the person you were prior to getting married to who you are.
That's why I said the first thing I said, that marriage doesn't change you. Like, you change on your way to marriage, but you don't wake up with the wing on.
But remember the difference between... Okay, let us clarify. So, the marriage doesn't change the relationship dynamic. You can change personally in the marriage, but remember, the actual physical marriage, right? Not physical, the actual elements of marriage doesn't change. If your relationship, if you had a toxic relationship to begin with, you're gonna have a toxic marriage.
They're putting the ring on, having a child, doing any of those things are not gonna solve the problem. Okay. Just like if you have a good relationship, it's not gonna become like, oh, I'm gonna put on the ring. This like fallacy that like, yeah, she's great, but the second we get married, she gonna go gotcha bitch, and she gonna transform into like the evil queen. Like, that's not true either.
So if you follow our vlog, right, you're probably gonna hear this because neither of us are really fans of Tyler Perry, but Dan is like next level, can't stand Tyler Perry.
I don't even remember what movie that was.
There's a movie with.
But you're describing like every one of the movies. It's like the guy is like, so, oh, I love you. Then he got married. Come here, girl.
It was with Brandy.
Give me my damn sandwich, girl.
It was Brandy doing it. Brandy, I think, was in it.
What the hell just happened?
It's like...
What just happened a while ago? Now dude just transformed. Like, you didn't see any warning signs before that. But the day you got married, then he was just like, haha, got your ass.
A lot of Tyler Perry movies are like that. And it's scary, you know. I'm sure there are what are those things? Those con artists, right? There are con artists out there. But again, all these, like, there's this new one that I was watching on Netflix. There were red flags, you just weren't paying attention to them. Okay?
Or you wanted to believe
he was a millionaire. You wanted to believe that he's whining and dining you, but then his credit card had a different name on it. Why his credit card got a different name than the name that he told you?
Oh, you talking about what was that?
There's this new one.
Tinder swindler or something.
Yeah, Tinder.
And it was like,
you watched
first
it?
of all, I just read it and I was just like, you wanted You wanted a millionaire. I'm not wronging you for that. There are people that are going to say, oh, that's good for you. That's what you get for being a gold digger. That's not what my problem with you is. My problem is you want that, right? You're actively going to seek that out. Be careful what you wish for, because there's a certain type that you're going to find. You're either going to find somebody who's trying to trick you that they're that, or they're that, and they're going to realize, oh, you only want me for my money, and now you're going to have that kind of relationship. Yeah. But the swindler part was just like, it's like the girl that was like, fooled her friend into believing that she was rich.
Yeah, that was. That's like, on. They have a Netflix recreation of it now.
My credit card is I'm a billionaire, right? Yeah. But my credit card isn't working, so put 20 grand. And I'm not saying this girl is a fool, but I'm saying, like, use your common sense and say to yourself, like, yo.
So yes, red flags can apply to friendships as well. Any relationship. Yeah, like, pay attention to the red flags, and don't like, oh, this is my bestie.
Oh, I'm gonna, like, just like I saw this thing where dude was like, yo, let me that money. I got you. I got that $20 for you tomorrow. Then wait till tomorrow. You don't need it right now. Yeah. You literally gonna pay me back tomorrow? You gonna pay me back tomorrow? Mm-hmm. Just wait till tomorrow to do whatever you was gonna do. Then that's cool. That's what I'm talking about. Like, don't be silly, right? Marriage does not transform you. Mm-hmm. But like this idea that's like, oh, she's cool, I love her, our relationship is great, but the second I marry her, she's gonna transform.
So get that out of your head, mm-hmm. right? So things to remember for, those people.
Parenting now. Those things, that's a different thing.
That's a whole nother thing.
That's another thing. Because now you brought a whole person into your relationship. There's a third, so possibly that is definitely more than, multiples makes it even.
So I would definitely agree that parenting can change.
That can change your life overnight. That can make you into another person overnight. Yeah.
But okay, so pointers to remember. Okay, because I think you kind of, like I said, we're wrapping it up. But pointers to remember in if you are looking at your person and saying, oh, I want to take it to the next level and get married. Think about the red flags. Don't do a pro and con list, but like,
don't take it to the next level because this level is bad.
Oh yes, that is good. Say that again.
Yeah, rewind. Don't take it to the next level because this level is bad.
Okay. That's a real point right there. Okay. Yeah. Nothing's going to change
for the good. Nothing's going to change by making the situation more complicated or taking it to a more advanced level. And a lot of
people will do that. And it's not always marriage. It's like, oh well, things are not. All right, so let's move in together. How was that gonna help?
If you were
around him more, so I'll see him if he's cheating.
If you were struggling with the adding and subtraction, it's not gonna get better when you get the division and multiplication.
Okay, like, oh, now we living together. Oh well, now we have a kid together. It was bad. It was toxic. Then it's gonna be even more toxic when you add on the living situation and the baby and. Okay, so just remember that. So we appreciate you coming and joining us on this discussion. We probably gonna end up talking about it a little more. But again, we thank you for all the love and support. If you haven't done it already, please like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell notification because we do this often. And this is the first of hopefully many Blue Couch series. So again, thank you. I hope you had a glass of wine while we were drinking. Well, we will do it again. Please, if you have a topic you want us to discuss, comment below. We're kind of open to any topic. Dan looks tired. But cheers. Do you have any last words to kind of say to...
Yeah. Wash your damn hands.
Peace, love, and nappiness. Just cheers. Cheers. So that was fun.
Just remember to wash your damn hands.
Wash your damn
love. I think it's one of a kind. There's something special about your love.